Hello, curious listeners. I wanted to share more about CBUSA's group purchasing organization. As a member, there are so many benefits that go beyond earning rebates and lowering material costs. One of the biggest perks is having the chance to network and share ideas with other like minded builders who are on the same journey as you. CBUSA's Minneapolis chapter is about to get going, and I'm excited to work with some of the best builders in the Twin Cities. My friends Katie and Jesse from JCat Design Build, as well as Jamie and Morgan Molitor from Constructing to Style, are on board to join, and it's going to be great. There's so much more we can do together as a group than we could ever do on our own, and I'm looking forward to the opportunities it's going to bring. To learn more about the benefits of CBUSA and apply for membership, go to cbusa.us/learn. That's cbusa.us/learn. Additionally, if you want to hear me interview Ryan Lipchek from CBUSA, that's episode 26 on the Curious Builder podcast. Welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host, and today is Thursday, where we're going to take a question from the audience and do our best to answer it. So today's question was, how do you recharge and avoid burnout? And how do you preserve your mental health? This is a massive question, and it turns out it's a good timing. I just got back from a little 3-day vacation. I'm training for an ultramarathon, which is actually part of what I'm going to talk about today. And I hadn't seen my sister in a while, so I went out to Tahoe. She's out there for a 4-month detail. She works for the Forest Service, and spent a lot of time out in the mountains, which is kind of a happy place for me, running, hiking, spending some time with my sister, and just kind of unplugging, spending 8-9 hours a day out in kind of no man's land, just kind of getting in tune with nature. And so the reason I'm bringing this up, I can only speak of how I avoid burnout, and I've definitely been burned out multiple times. Maybe I'll start there. I would say I'm kind of coming out of a burnout from about a year and a half ago, and I think it coincided with 2 difficult clients, and also just a lot on my plate. Young family, trying to balance kids, work. I had started the Curious Builder podcast and all its various platforms, going over some internal turmoil with employees, and just seemed like it was just a lot. And I would have to say that while I was burning out, a big part of it was rediscovering what energizes you. And so, it's kind of like that old football adage, the best defense is a good offense. And I find for myself personally that the best way for me to avoid burnout is to be really passionate about something, to be really, curious about something. So specifically for me, it was starting the podcast. That really helped energize me. I kind of feel like it was sort of like jet fuel to my engine. And after a couple of years now of having the podcast and creating its different things, I'm now at a different level in terms of I know what I'm doing. I've created a bunch of things, and I'm still innovating, which is really exciting. So I would say, whether it's a podcast or building, or sometimes people really get energized by reshaping their company, whether it's employees or changing your operations. I think those are all things that can help you get passionate about what you do. I think what I want to speak about mostly today is maybe some personal parameters that I've set that have really helped me over the long haul avoid burnout. And for me, athletics is a huge, huge part of my life. It always has been, and hopefully it always will be. For me, I really resonate with this slogan, or this little quote that I've been saying a lot on the podcast recently. I've asked my guests to respond to it, and it's boundaries create freedom. And so for me, that means beginning the day where it's pretty much the only part of my day I can control. So it starts with actually going to bed early. And I honestly can't remember when I started doing this. It's got to have been maybe 5-6 years ago. So I usually go to bed probably around 9 o'clock, 9:30. And I wake up at 5 pretty much every day. And 5 to 7 is kind of my time for, right now I'm running a lot. So it's usually every day I have something different planned, whether it's weights or running, or, I run with a lot of other people. So I'm maybe driving out to a hill or a trail, meeting people, and then running, or I bike a couple of days a week for cross training. So it's always in that time from 5 to 7. And so I don't ever have to think about what I'm doing. There's a lot of actually mental freedom in not having to think about what you're going to do every morning. I know I heard one time somebody say that if you can remove every hurdle that would prevent you from doing something you don't want to do, it's easier to do it. So if you have a hard time getting out of bed to go running, I've heard of people literally having shoes at the base of their bed. So when they get out of bed, They put their feet right in their shoes and then they head right outside and they just start running. And so whatever your hack is, having a habit, I think somebody said it takes like 30 days, 45 days before your habit is set. And it's kind of interesting. I noticed last year when I was training for an ultra marathon that after I finished my race in October out in Montana, I thought, I'm going to take a week or two off. And it took me like a month to reestablish a new habit. I think this year I'm not going to change my habit. I always wake up at that time, but I'm going to keep it with a different activity, whether it's basketball or whatever. And the reason I'm bringing up so much of this is really this is what keeps me energized. It also forms a form-fitting habit. If you're going to wake up early, you've got to go to bed early. And sleep is one of the things that we don't talk enough about. I read a book a couple of years ago called Why Do We Sleep? And it really talked a lot about, I think it was like Tom Brady, Lance Armstrong, and forget who the other super athlete was. Oh, Usain Bolt. I think like 2 hours before he broke the Olympic record, he took like an hour nap or something like that. But they basically said outside of like EPO or testosterone or steroid doping, that sleeping is still by and far the best, quote, natural drug you could ever take for performance enhancing drugs. And that's how powerful sleep is. And so one of the first things you can do for avoiding burnout is making sure you get enough sleep. And for me, it means going to bed earlier because I always wake up at the same time. After that, it's, family time. So I'm home every day at around 7, get the kids up. My wife usually makes them breakfast. I get them ready for school and brush their teeth. And then we're off to school for drop off. I always do drop off every day. So that's kind of that 7 to 8 time. And then obviously you work during the day. And I don't really get burned out at work because there's so much going on. I was just recently talking to my office manager. At some point in your life, you think, man, I wish the day would go faster. I think way back in maybe high school or college or, when time is just slowly ticking by and you're looking at the clock, you're like, oh my word, I can't believe it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. I have the whole rest of the day. But as an adult, and I've never thought about this, I don't know when it switched, but there is never enough time in the day. Like right now I'm recording this, it's 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm like, what? It feels like it's 9 a.m. How in the world has the entire day gone by already? And so I feel like if you don't have these habits, you are going to burn out. And so by having a habit to sort of protect yourself from yourself, I think it's really helpful. I've sort of always been a slave to email because I'm an Uber communicator. I really like to communicate. It really bothers me when I can't respond to people quickly. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to completely kind of lay this sword down, but I think just not responding all the time right away and letting some space and letting it breathe a little bit would probably benefit me. So that's something I'm actively working on. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but and this is really something I have to thank my wife for because every day I'm home at 5 o'clock, maybe 5:05, depending on traffic. We have dinner every night at 5:30. And because I'm a morning person, almost exclusively, my clients will never see an email from me at night or my team. I just don't work at night. I'm too sleepy. I'm with my family. After I put the kids to sleep, I usually go to sleep. So there is no time for me to work at night. And this has actually benefited me in ways that I didn't realize until years later. And this was really because I've always wanted to, I grew up in a family that we always had dinner together. That was very important to me. And it's very important to my wife. But you don't realize it till you're a parent. I have 8, 6, and a 4-year-old. And you don't realize till you are a parent of A, how much energy it takes, and B, how thankful you are for that time. We like to do the rosebud thorn thing around the dinner table. And that's really your recharge time. To avoid burning out, you have to recharge and you have to have some downtime. And, if you're single, maybe that downtime is going for a walk with your dog in the evening. Maybe it's reading a book, crossword puzzle, whatever it is that you are recharged by, you have to find it. I think make it part of your daily routine, if not multiple points in your day. Because if you're always just going to be stressed out, you are just going to wind yourself up and explode. So for me, and I learned this from another builder here in Minnesota, I used to, when I was single and also before I had kids, if someone called in the evening, obviously I would take the call. I'm an entrepreneur. That's what you did. I grew up, my dad was a builder and that was well before email. So I saw that culturally that, yeah, you answered the phone at night when people rang. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to become a builder. Early on when I was a teenager, I remember, the phone ringing at like 2 o'clock in the morning when it was raining. And the next morning asking my dad, like, what was that? And it was like, oh, that was a plumber or, a roof leaked. I had to get a hold of the roofer. I'm like, man, who wants a job where they're calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning? And, now you have teams of people, you have, warranty departments, potentially how big your company is. Or you might, call your roofer directly. Maybe as a shout out to the roofers, you guys are on standby all the time. But I remember not wanting to do that. And so for me, I don't answer my phone at night, but then again, nobody calls me either. So it's pretty easy. And I think by having those parameters and not working on weekends. So this other builder one time said that he wanted this big job. Let's call it a $5, $6, $7 million home, a huge career move for him. But the homeowner only could meet, or said he could only meet, on Saturdays at 11 a.m. And for 2 years, this builder met with this client, and he said he had young daughters, and he said it was the biggest mistake he's made of his professional life. And hearing that story, I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast, has been hugely helpful to me. And it's really shaped my mindset and how I want to do. And it's not always perfect. I mean, we have something in Minnesota called the Parade of Homes or the Artisan Home Tour, where, the fall or the spring, I'll work because it's important for me to work in my own home. So for that month, let's say of June, I'll work 3 weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 12 to 6. And my family knows about it. It's not a lot. And so just because I don't normally work at night, it seems like a lot to them. But in the grand scheme of things, that is a very acceptable, you know, uh, you know, excuse in my opinion to do that. Or not excuse is the wrong word, but you know about it. It needs to be done. There are certain things that, are extenuating circumstances, or like a client dinner at night, something like that. But in general, if you can create some parameters that allow you to recharge, the hard part for me is I am an extrovert. So I actually get excited and engaged and charged up by other people. But I get my best ideas when I sort of can collaborate with people. But sometimes it's like you collaborate with people, and then when you get kind of some downtime, especially the quiet time, if you're exercising, for me, that's a lot of the times when the thoughts kind of pour in, when there is quiet. It's like it's been, kind of percolating my brain all day or all week or all month, and all of a sudden all these ideas will come out. Sometimes I need a person to sort of spark that idea, but I do definitely benefit from kind of that downtime. Anyway, this builder, going back to the builder that said he wouldn't work Saturdays, he said that every Saturday was broken up, and he missed so much of his daughter's growing up 2 years there because of that. And so as because of that, he wouldn't ever do that again. And because of him, I actually wrote it into my contracts that there's no texting to my employers or to my employees or myself, after a certain time range. You can email us anytime you want, because obviously then you can check those emails when you operate. But I also, it's a normal thing. I'm not sure at what point in building we thought we were an ER doctor where we were always on call. And here's a news flash. I have plenty of people I know that are ER doctors, and they work like 4 days on and 5 days off. They work 3 days on and 4 days off. This is an ER doctor. Like, they need downtime. You cannot be a triage surgeon or, running triage on a gaping neck wound 24/7. You will absolutely fry out. And they talk about, some of the most stressful jobs in the world. ER doc is one of them, EMT, and a air traffic controller. And I think building, actually, we could do a whole podcast on this, is somewhat similar to an air traffic controller, because a general contractor, you're constantly being interrupted. You're constantly directing, quote, traffic in multiple directions. I've never thought about this before, but an air traffic controller is a perfect analogy for a general contractor. And if you don't align things right, you're going to have, quote, some collisions. You're going to have some collateral damage. It's not quite as catastrophic as two airplanes hitting each other, or I certainly hope not. But there's a lot of stress involved. I think project managers are very undervalued in all industries. Those and event planners, they're gluttons for punishment. This episode is brought to you by Alpine Hardwood Flooring. They've been our partner now for over a decade, installing all our wood floors on all our new homes as well as our remodels. And on a personal level, Adam and Anthony Jankola, the owners, are just absolutely amazing people. They've been so supportive of my career, as well as doing anything we need to make sure that our clients are happy. And they work so well with our other vendors and trade partners at not only protecting their product, but also ensuring everyone else's looks great. So if you're looking for a wood floor or for a refinish, I highly recommend Alpine Hardwood Flooring. Going back to the avoiding the burnout question. So those are some things that I do to avoid burnout. I think you kind of need to do them daily. I also think you need some pauses. I interviewed Jackson Schwartz from Hennepin Made about a year and a half ago. We did a live event, and it came out that, most people give their employees the week of Christmas off. And the last couple of years, especially with young kids, and now where it's lining up with schools, it's like, why are we even working the week of, 26th through the 1st? Nobody's around. You call someone, they don't answer. Their email says they're traveling. It's like nothing actually gets done. You're going to the office, and what are you doing? You're twiddling your thumbs. I guess you could work on some operational things or some goal setting, which is fine, but you probably don't even need to be in the office to do that. So starting last year or maybe the year before, we've just made it a Mark Williams Custom Homes policy that we are closed for the week of Christmas and the week after. We're shut down. We let our clients know ahead of time. Now, if there are some projects that are, in construction, we do let our teams know about it ahead of time, our trade partners or subcontractors, and, the project managers like, hey, if there's an emergency, let me know. If they're around. If they're not around, then I guess they're going to call me. But the point of it is you kind of set the expectations ahead of time. You don't just, set your out of office email and just surprise everyone. You kind of give them a little heads up. And then the other thing that came out with Jackson is that he actually shuts down. It's a handmade glass company. That's an amazing company, Hennep and Made. Shout out to them. But they closed down the week of the 4th of July. And it took me about 6 months to a year to actually incorporate it. So this last 4th of July, we did it for the first time. We shut down the week of the 4th. And again, we let our clients know, we let our trade partners know that we just kind of for a mental health break, making sure people are energized. And it was great. People came back all excited. And so I'm bringing this up because I feel like it's hard sometimes to say, like right now, if you said, Mark, take next week off. Ooh, that's going to be hard. I have a lot of meetings. But if you go out 4, 5, 6 months and say, book off a week, well, that's way easier. Well, then how much easier is it to do more, like 10 days, 2 weeks, multiple points in the year? You can really start planning out so you don't have to, worry about scheduling. So I would really encourage somebody to look at their family, look at their life, and start actually booking these times out. This will all help you avoid burnout, because what good does it do if you want to have a 30, 40 year career, but you burn out at 20? Yeah, I mean, you lost 20 years on the table, both in earning income, mental health. I mean, and plus, you still want to live during the day. It's a little bit like, if you are just living for retirement, sorry to say, you're not really living. And I like what one of my clients one time said. He goes, if you're constantly thinking about retirement, perhaps you've chosen the wrong career. And I've always really appreciated that he said that, because if you're passionate about something, it's not hard to work. And I think a lot of people listening, I know I am, like, I do love to work. I love my job. I love people. I love who I work with. And not every day is the best day ever. In general, I really like what I do. And therefore, it's not hard to work. So a lot of these parameters for burnout is sort of to protect ourselves from ourselves. For me, I wouldn't even be aware enough without my wife and without my family structure to even think about some of these things. And so, being thankful that you have people on your team, whether they're employees or your inner family, your immediate family, whatever it is, having people sort of give you perspective will help you, last longer. And if you can now, let's say, extend your career or extend your happiness, you might not even retire. You might find it's so enjoyable and you have such a good balance that, what is retirement? What does that even mean? And then I would say, checking out to check in. So I like this saying because, my dad, who I've had on the podcast, I interviewed him last December. He one time said that it was the 3 and 4 day weekends that sort of prolonged his career. He had a heart attack when he was 52. He said a lot of it was due to stress. This is way before, cell phones and email and things like that to communicate. And so they worked a lot of nights. They worked a lot of weekends because that's just what you did in that generation. I feel like if there's ever been a generation that is more open to flexible hours, especially since COVID, it'd be the generation we're in right now. I think people, especially our clients, really resonate when you say, when you tell them that, we don't meet at nights. We don't meet at weekends. If you want to go see, your dentist, it's not like you get to go at 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday. Like, that doesn't happen. Or you want to meet them 1 o'clock on a Sunday, like that doesn't happen. So again, why is this normal in construction? You'll have clients sometimes that will come to you and say, I'm XYZ, I can't work during, I can't meet you during these times. You might have to say this, then I'm not maybe your builder. And maybe there's somebody else that wants to do that, different phases of life. We had a client that I've spoken about before where, they did not have children and he had a very busy practice. And he said, he's actually one of my favorite clients I've ever had. But he said, I want to meet at night and I want to meet at weekends. And I just talked to that other builder who said, don't meet on weekends. So luckily it was fresh in my brain because it was a big project and I had to be willing to lose it. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I have a young family. And I said, I'm not willing to give up my nights and weekends for 2.5 years. But I said, what I will do is anytime you want to meet, between 5 a.m. and 5 p.m., I'll meet you. And by the way, I'm going to pair you with an architect who I'd already knew he was the right architect for this client, whose kids were much older, and he did like to work nights and weekends, and that was his choice. And so it worked out really well that the partner that this client could work with was very flexible and accommodating, and actually enjoyed sort of working at those hours. And so it worked out perfect. The client had a great experience. He's one of our biggest supporters, loves, just helped us, throw this big charity event recently. Just an amazing person, him and his wife, and they had a great build. And I think just being honest with them that, if we need to protect ourselves from burnout and also protect our mental health. And I think speaking about mental health, I'm going to run out of time on this particular episode to talk about mental health. And I can't say I'm an expert other than we need to find ways to rest. I think I've spoken about that quite a bit already, but we also need to find ways to be energized. I think, again, going back to a good offense is a good defense. If our mental health, if we're excited about something, like if we have a lot of positivity, that mental health is going to really protect us. Maybe it's like good cholesterol. The good cholesterol is going to keep you away from the bad cholesterol. And so I think of different things. It might be your faith. It might be, reading the Bible. It might be reading quotes in the morning. It might be, as I've already said, it might be health and fitness and things like that. It could also be, people. Sometimes, for instance, every year, I usually in the fall will take like 4 or 5 days off and I'll go to the Boundary Waters, which is in northern Minnesota, and it's canoeing and paddling and camping. It's not very comfortable. A lot of people would be like, why are you going in the woods to, live like a Neanderthal? But it's so cathartic. There's no cell phones. That you are completely, in rhythm with the sun when it sets and when it rises, and life slows down. If anything, I wish I could stay up there for like a week. We usually go for about 3-4 days, and it's only about the last day that you really start, just that calming sensation. And so I would encourage people to get outside and to just put their phone away, even if it's only for an hour, just go on a walk, go on a run, leave your phone behind. Even better if you could do like a whole weekend without it. We're excited to announce that we've opened up another Curious Collective. For the last year, we've had the Curious Builder Collective. We now have the Curious Builder Collective for designers. The first ones will be happening in September. All the details are going to be on our website. We have 30 spots available. Half of them have already filled. We additionally have 8 spots left in the Builder Collective. If you're interested in getting together in small groups of 9 with local Minneapolis-based builders and designers in separate groups and talking about your business, talking about your brands, asking those questions that you wish you could ask another business owner, then this is the place for you. Details can be found at the CuriousBuilderPodcast.com. One of the things, we haven't announced it, I guess we're announcing it now. I've sort of hinted at a little bit, but very shortly, we're going to be announcing the Curious Builder Bootcamp. And really what this is I've resonated with enough other builders that this is definitely going to happen. There's enough people that want to do this, where I've gotten so much help of, getting out in the wilderness, whether it's trail running or canoeing or camping or just mountaineering, just getting outside and being away from your phone has been such a huge help for me. In fact, being out in the mountains last week made me want to put something on my calendar quarterly just to fly out for like a 3-day weekend, even, take the kids, whatever. Just, I need to be in the mountains. It's kind of my happy place. It's where I recharge. And so next May, we're going to go to Zion National Park. We're going to limit it to 20 people. And it is going to be, you get off the airplane, you check in your phone. There's going to be no phone, no alcohol. And we are just going to be outside. We're going to have some regular rhythm. There's going to be some journaling component, some quiet parts of the day. There's going to be some exercise, whether it's running or body weight exercise, some mobility exercise. And then we're just going to be with other builders and entrepreneurs from around the country. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be just a great way to share something that I'm really passionate about. And I think we as a society need to get back in touch with to stay energized and to avoid burnout and to make sure that our mental health is great. So hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share with your friends and family and other colleagues if you find this episode interesting, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder Podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.